Oh my gosh, guys, I'm jumping off the walls even more than usual. I have this amazingly hilarious comedian, and I know you guys always give me shit about like wanting to be a gold digger, why I'm a gold digger, wanting to marry rich. Guess what? I found a trophy husband this time, okay, guys? He married a doctor, okay, so he's set for life. And not only that, he's a USC grad and a UCLA grad, so that must be freaking confusing in his house. But he's also an author, guys, okay? He's an author who's very generous. I actually saw him at Adele's in San Clemente performing, and he was immediately one of my favorites. He actually gave me the book that he authored, okay, guys? So I'm not the narcissist who gifts people my book for Christmas. Okay, so he's the author of the Greg Giraldo, a comedian storybook. It's available on Amazon. It's amazing. He authored it with a bunch of other comedians as well, but he's the main author, guys, okay? So I'm so excited to welcome the very hilarious Matt Balaker. Hi, Matt. How are you doing?
Hi, Lee. I don't know if I can ever follow up to that intro, so thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I think you can surpass it. I have faith in you. So okay. I have so many questions. Should we talk about the book first, or should we talk about your trophiness first?
Either way, there might be some intermingling, but I think having being a trophy husband is challenging. So is writing a book, but they're both rewarding. So we can go any direction you like.
Okay, let's do book because I feel like the questions that I prepared. Okay, guys, he literally gave me a free book after like we talked a little bit, but I didn't connect that he was the author. So my questions were not about the book. So okay, let's just do book first. Okay. So you wrote Greg
Sounds
Giraldo, a
good.
comedian story. That's freaking amazing as a book. Can you tell us like what made you decide to write this book?
Sure. First off, I was a very big fan of Greg Giraldo. Especially when I started comedy, like doing it really seriously, it's around 2003, 4. He was probably the comic I looked up to the most, just because he was so consistently entertaining and funny, and he never sounded preachy, at least to me. And then he also had this double side of being sort of secretive about his personal life, or maybe he was just kind of too busy to really worry about a website. But then fast forward several years to when he passed away, it really hit me. And I was kind of the asshole who would always not understand why people would get so sad when a celebrity died. And then when one I followed passed away, I actually started crying. And I was a little embarrassed to admit that at first, but I've had to come to terms with it. And so he was without a doubt the celebrity that impacted me the most. And then about 5.5 years ago, I was working at a job that that's a different story. I'm not there anymore. But I was at a break during my job, and I wanted to read about him. And I went on Amazon and did a search, and there were no books. So that was my inspiration to write about Greg Giraldo.
Your book is freaking amazing because I knew it was written by somebody like super duper educated and funny. So like you talk about a lot of serious stuff, like because Greg went to Harvard and he had law school potential, and then he was like, what's the lawyer's sitcom? Sorry, he was whatever.
Common law. Yeah, he went to Harvard Law School, then started a sitcom called Common Law.
Mm-hmm. So it was like it was amazing to see it written in such detail. And you talk a little bit about addiction. So like, what was the process of writing the book? And like, I mean, did you collect the individual interviews? Because there were a lot of comedians talking about it. So I imagine it must have been a feat. So like, what?
Oh yeah.
What was like? Walk us through the whole process because it's really fascinating to me.
Sure. Well, it was several years in the making, and probably like many entrepreneurial ventures, I never would have done it had I known how much work and all that was involved. But sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Right.
And so after I had that,
is this your first book?
It is. Yeah, it's
Holy
my first
shit.
book.
Holy shit! Congratulations, man. It's amazing.
Thank you. And we're coming out with an audio version too. So for any illiterates out there, if you like books but hate to read, this is perfect. We've got you covered.
Are you gonna read it, or you're gonna hire somebody else to read it?
Oh, it's basically been done. We're just in final production.
Oh, okay.
We hired a guy who was not only a Greg Giraldo fan, but he lived in New York City, so he sounds a little bit like him.
That's hilarious. I love that. Okay, yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I was so excited. Okay, sorry, continue.
Yeah, how dare you interrupt
I
me on your own
know,
show?
right?
That's so inconsiderate of you.
Okay, I'll shut up.
No, I will allow it because you sent me the Zoom link.
Okay.
But yeah, I decided I wanted to write this book, and probably one of the best things I did was tell a lot of people, like, publicly, and I think that kept me more accountable. So shortly after I decided to write the book, I just brainstormed who I needed to interview. And from doing comedy in LA, and I ran a show in LA for 6 years, I had a pretty good network of comedians that I knew well. However, I didn't know quite as many in New York City. And there was one girl I was friends with named Kareth Foster, and she put me in touch with Greg Giraldo's old manager, Rick Dorfman.
Wow.
And then, so he was one of the first people I interviewed. And then Rick Dorfman connected me to Marianne Giraldo, which was Greg's second wife, but the one he was with the longest. They were together about 10 years. And then because of her willingness to be interviewed, that opened the door to bigger name. Like Jim Gaffigan did it because Marianne did it. So it's kind of a domino effect. But the summary was, you know, I didn't know everyone I wanted to interview before. I knew about 20. But it seemed like when I did one interview, it opened the doors to others, or it made me think, gosh, I should interview this other person. And so I did about 20, 25 on my own, Lee, and then I needed more money, and I think I just needed more help because the project was snowballing at a rate that I couldn't manage all on my own. And so I set up a Kickstarter campaign, and I didn't really know how much money I needed. I just looked at what other campaigns were doing that were creating books, and they were usually in like the $2,000 to $5,000 range. So I think I put like 3,500. So long story, slightly less long. We raised more money than expected, and also through that, I connected with Wayne Jones, and Wayne is an academic librarian in Canada, and he had authored some books too, and he was a donor who happened to be a huge Greg Giraldo fan as well. And so I was in the process of looking at people to co-author with, and he was kind of perfect because he had the experience, and I think more importantly, the willingness to do a lot of work.
Wow. I'm going to change the title of the podcast. This is going to be Greg Giraldo.
Well, we can venture back to me because I got bills to pay too. So.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But that's really impressive because I feel like it's so much work writing a book, and the fact that you had so many, you gathered so many resources and people, even in the midst of financial difficulty. Huge respect to you for that. So
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So like, what was your favorite part about the book? Like, what are your favorite chapters, I guess?
That's a good question. The chapter I'm probably most, I guess, had the greatest swing about is chapter 5. It's called The Comedian's Mind. And I say that because about a week before we published it, it was dramatically different than it is now. And it was the one chapter that was kind of a transition of the story. And so it was the chance to take away from kind of Greg's earlier life into more, touch on more of the darker subjects. And it was a placeholder, I'm not kidding, for about 2 years because we just had some quotes and we had some outlines of a chapter, but it was never really finished. And then we had an interview with, I think an old girlfriend of his. I don't remember what prompted it, but then all of a sudden we just shifted gears and made it more about the psychology of stand-up comedians and stand-up comedy. And obviously that's something I relate to too. Yes, so we ended up chopping a lot of it and then making it more about the internal struggles of comedians, and it just hit home. And it's something that I'm now very proud of.
I love that. So yeah, seriously, I feel like I read it before I started seriously doing stand-up comedy, so it's super helpful for you to just kind of break it down. So it's not just like a one isolated incident, but like you can draw parallels to everyone's life. So thank you for that.
Sure.
And like, what do you hope people get out of reading the book? Like, because obviously it's very personal as to Greg's story, but I think like everybody, not just comics, can relate to it. So like, what do you hope people get out of reading your book?
Yeah, I think foremost an appreciation of what Greg actually did, because there's this running storyline since his passing that's like, oh crap, he could have been you know, so much more. It could have been such a bigger name. And that's absolutely true. But what I really want is people just be like, damn, he was freaking good. And not just good, one of the best ever.
Yes.
And, you know, I make I've said it before, to me, he's kind of like the Kurt Cobain of stand-up comedy. At least, you know, he left such a mark.
Yeah.
And then hopefully they you know, buy it through Amazon because I get the most money there, and then you know, I can feel better about myself.
I'm gonna drop it. So Greg Giraldo, Giraldo for my illiterate listeners, a comedian story by Matt Balaker. Okay, but seriously, guys, get it. If you are on Kindle Unlimited, you get it for free. But you also get something as an author because it's we're authors, so we know what's up. But if you buy paperback,
you know the drill.
Yeah, we know the drill. So just buy from Amazon, support local comedy. But it doesn't matter because you have a trophy, your trophy husband, because your wife is a doctor. So okay, any else? Okay, because this book is amazing. Is there anything else you want to add about the book that I didn't ask about?
Well, it's important that all your listeners buy a copy for themselves, and then buy several more that they can give out as gifts. So that's the big story of it all.
Should I release it for Christmas? Fuck. Okay, now shit. Okay, now should I I might change my okay. Anyways, but bye guys. It's real. Okay, I should say one thing. Do you feel like smart comedy is accepted? Okay, how can I say this? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, because you went to USC, you went to UCLA, you're a smart person. I hate it when people just do dick jokes. I interviewed Felice. She also went to Berkeley and she hates dick, like not executed well dick jokes. So what are your thoughts on like smart comedy and then like talking about more comedy? Do you know what I mean? Am I going crazy?
Yeah, no, that's
okay.
Yes, but I like it.
Okay.
So I like well constructed dick jokes. I think that's it's a good question because on one hand, I think comedy the goal should be funny, and it's sort of like cuisine. You know, everyone has different tastes, and I'm not purposely being diplomatic. I mean, I mean that. Like, I think clean comedy can be great, and I think raunchy, immature comedy can be great but they all have to be executed well. And I think by smart comedy, what I like is when the goal is still humor, and it's not just about like how many big words someone knows or like some obscure literary reference that we should be impressed by. I think smart comedy is best when there's an element of surprise and it's presented in a way that doesn't sound preachy. Like South Park is a good example. I think South Park's very smart, but they'll also have like, you know, plenty of dick jokes in there too. Right. So I think it's a good balance.
I love that.
What do you think? What's your take on
that makes sense.
Smart?
Because like, I am like trying to really develop my Trump set as a Asian female comedian. So that makes sense. I'm gonna be working a lot to get this. But thank you for I appreciate it. Okay, next thing I did want to ask before I forget, what are your thoughts on addiction in general? And like for comics who are struggling with this, like do you have any advice? Like what are your thoughts on overcoming like your demons in general?
Gosh, that's a super important topic, and I'm very ill qualified to answer, but I'll do my best. I think one thing I learned from the book is just how pervasive addiction is, and how there's usually a mental component. And I guess the big piece of advice is talk to someone. I think it's a little easier said than done because a lot of people with addiction issues, it really stems from a mental health problem. And a lot of times those people who suffer from that are just very unwilling to talk about it. But I think to some extent we all have some anxiety or we all have some mental health issue.
Yeah, we're human. We have to. Like, come on.
Yeah. And so I think the biggest thing is just talk about it. And I don't want to say, well, I'm not naive enough to think, well, that'll just relieve all the stigma. But there are ways to help. But I think the one thing I've learned from the research I've did is if you have the demon inside you, it's really incumbent on the person, unless you want to recover, you're not going to. And I think sometimes the more you talk about it, the more you'll want to do it. But it's really not something that anyone can do for you. But when you're willing to do it, there are those around you who can help you get there.
Love that. Oh, wow. Okay. Jam pack everything. I like it. Yeah, anything else you want to talk about the book? Because it is a really good book, seriously, guys. I got it for free, but I would totally buy it again if I had to.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can PayPal me now if you want after the
Oh
fact.
man. What? Okay. I'm probably
Well, fair enough.
Are you Jew? Are you Jew?
I'm Catholic, so I'm a Christian Jew.
I'm confused by that. But you are some sort of ethnic, right? Or am I confusing you with somebody else from that lineup? Are you ethnic?
I'm some sort of well, my mom's an immigrant from Europe, so I guess we're all ethnic in some way. But
No,
I'm
which country?
white.
I need to know which country. Which country?
Well, it used to be called Yugoslavia, but
Oh,
now
then
it's called
okay.
Slovenia.
All right. Then you got the hustle. All right. Okay, because I was
I
like,
got the hustle.
this white man get into all these cool schools without any connection. Um, all right. But seriously, guys, buy the book. Buy the book. Buy the book. Buy the book until you dream about it in your sleep. Okay. But just buy the book, guys. Okay. So let's talk about trophy husband. You are a trophy husband. You're pretty like good looking for a white dude, and you married a doctor wife. Can you tell us how did you trick her into marriage?
Well, first being pretty good looking for white, that was the biggest step.
You're kind of tall too. You're
That's
like what, like 8 feet tall?
I'm 8'3" actually, 8'3.5". No, I'm 6'3" and some change.
Okay.
But I think I was thinking about this. Like we met online, and so I guess probably the first step to marrying a doctor is being willing to talk to doctors or med students. Because I met her when she was in medical school.
Oh, that makes sense.
Um,
Like in
and
USC or UCLA?
pardon, she went to USC medical school, and
Oh,
actually she went to UCLA undergrad, but I didn't know her then because she's much younger than me, like 2.5 years or so.
oh, 2.5 years.
But I no, I didn't. It's I don't want to reveal her age, but yes,
Okay.
we
'Cause you're
met.
pretty old.
Gosh, about what's that?
You're pretty old.
I am, yes. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm
But
just.
she's not quite as old. Um, I am, but that's fair enough because the world's going to end in 12 years, and so it won't, we'll all be dead anyway. So
That's true.
age is less relevant. God, that got dark. We're talking about how to
I
marry
need
a
to marry a
doctor.
rich guy and just make sure he dies and leaves me everything. So that's dark too. So we're even. All right. That's
Well, I talked to my wife about this last night, kind of just joking about the interview, and I had like a real job at the time. I was a investment officer at a hedge fund.
Oh shit.
It wasn't like this huge. It wasn't this huge one, but I was doing pretty well. I wasn't like a millionaire or anything, but like on the path to being one. And I think part of that was just, and this sounds super corny, but just not caring so much about what someone does as a profession, and then it doesn't really matter as much. Then you just find out what you have in common, and you just kind of proceed as ahead. But if I had this big hang up, like, oh, I don't think I could have gotten into medical school, or she must have done really well on her standardized exams, then I wouldn't have focused on actually getting to know her. And I think the first step is just kind of acknowledging what the person is doing and then not caring about it. Does that make sense?
Oh my god, this conversation is so nerdy. But yeah, it
So
definitely.
not caring is the advice I have. Meet someone and then try to care less about what they do, and then you'll grow closer together.
You mean people like other people for their personality?
I've read that, yes, but no, I think it's important, and I guess in my case, like I appreciated. I was attracted to. Well, obviously, I thought she was very pretty and hot,
She's
but
hot.
I
I
was
saw
also
her wife.
attracted.
Holy shit, she's hot and rich and.
Well, she wasn't rich.
I don't
She
understand.
was she was in debt. Like I was footing the bill on the date, so I was playing the long game.
Okay.
Um,
Long game. I see.
yeah,
So,
I was the one who was. I was doing a lot better at the time than she was.
now it's.
But so maybe that's some advice. Like sometimes you got to spend money to make money, and maybe that goes true with dating as well.
I see. So, okay. So I feel like, okay, so you obviously had enough smarts and hustle to get into these really good schools, and you won the genetic lottery basically. So like, for other men who do want sugar mamas and to be taken care of, they don't have humor and they don't have looks and they don't have charm and they don't have like height. Like, what do you suggest them to do in order to trap a sugar mama?
Learn how to roast a chicken. I think that I'm not kidding. When we were dating, my now wife was kind of, I don't know if she was just sick or maybe just burnt out on studying. And my mom cooks a lot, so I sort of learned through her. I'm not some amazing chef or anything, but whenever we were sick, she'd always just like cook extra food. And so that was my instincts. And I brought her, my now wife, dinner once, and she had it for like 3 days. And she still brings that up. It's like 14 years later or whatever. So learn how to make a damn chicken. Just Google it. It's not hard. You like put it in the oven for like 375 degrees for like 40 minutes. Don't overcook it, and that might seal the deal. And also with a lot, I mean, like you're a smart lady. A lot of times,
False.
girls who are intelligent, you know, like you. They want guys who aren't like pussies about it. Like they don't want these like timid, fearful guys. So just kind of don't overcompensate, I guess, but just like celebrate, you know, all that she has to offer, and then it'll come back to you.
You don't have nothing.
I guess that's a way of saying. Yeah, well, well, you're saying if you don't have my amazing good looks,
Oh right, oh yeah,
which is very very kind of you to say.
Yeah.
One way to kind of get around that is be a good listener. And again, this is easier said than done as I'm rambling on and on. But I think like if I was an ambitious or, you know, at least a confident girl, it's always nice to be heard. And so if a guy's trying to overcompensate for who knows what by just rambling on, that's not a good strategy. But if you're willing to just like ask questions, listen, and then ask questions based on what she said, you'll probably have a better chance of landing a second and third and fourth and fifth date. What do you think?
Yeah, that's solid advice. It's interesting from the guy's perspective because I just have my female perspective, and most of my friends are female. Okay. So when did you know like your wife was a one?
God, that's a great question. I'm still I think we're we were dating about 2.5 years, and it was around the time when she was finishing med school and applying for internships. That's like what you do after med school, and it's a matching program, and you don't really know where you're going to end up. And I was in LA, and she actually ended up in LA, but there was like a few month window where she could have been anywhere because she applied places throughout the country. And I think that was the point. I was kind of like, oh crap, she could be gone, and that would suck. And I was even thinking like in my job, I probably could have moved somewhere because I could do a lot of the work remotely.
Right.
But I don't know if I actually would. But I think that was it when I realized like, oh, there's a very real chance that she'll move somewhere, and that I didn't really want to do like the long distance thing. So that was kind of my impetus to be like, maybe I should get married. And then, you know, unbeknownst to me, she matched at UCLA. And then that gave me another year or so to twiddle my thumbs.
That's great. Love that. So, ladies, you gotta leave if things don't work out, because that's the only time when men will take action. When
it's kind of true. No, it's sort of true.
Yeah, I'm kind of joking, but it's serious. Yeah, I do think it's true. Okay. What was I about to say? Oh, wow. I was just engrossed in listening to your story. Okay. So you have kids as well. And then one of your jokes is like, you know, we want to encourage female empowerment so that, I mean, I don't want to ruin the joke, but I think you know where I'm going with this. So what are your thoughts on like women achieving a lot and then men wanting to be, how do I say this? Okay. I'll give you the context of it. So I was at a mic where people ask questions, like a storytelling mic. So like there's this panel that asked me questions, right? So I was like, you know what, to everyone, because I am a pretty controversial character in an Orange County comedy scene. So mine is like, seriously, if you guys, I don't know if
you're a lightning rod.
Yeah, lightning rod, basically. I wish I was hit by a lightning rod every day at this point. So much fun. But this is the most fun I've had, I think, in my whole life. The last 2 months have been insane. But anyways,
Good.
so you know, my bit is like I'm a foreign gold digger, right? So I talk a lot about marrying
Uh-huh.
a multimillionaire, and this is on my set, right? So one guy was like asking me, so and it's not malicious, I know. So we're all comedians, whatever. We're like comrades. So he's like, well, so okay, you want to marry a millionaire, so you can't cook, you can't clean, you can't do shit. So what do you bring to the table? And I knew from that statement that it's coming from a place of, because this guy was pretty good looking and he's pretty funny. So I'm pretty sure that throughout his life, he never really had to, how do I say this? Never really had to,
Hustle.
in a, you know what I'm trying to say? Because this is a good looking dude who's also a comic, right? So he can just get girls based on that, right? And he had a pretty stable family background from what I gather. So I can understand why he's asking this question, right? But in the long
Right.
scheme of things, and he said he didn't want to get married. So I was like, you know, I respect that. I interviewed him too. So his interview is going to drop too. But to me, as a woman who's been divorced, I really realized like that's where I went wrong. Like I married a guy who wanted somebody to bring something to the table because he didn't like me enough in terms of just who I was as a person. And then he didn't prescribe to the masculine role of being a protector and a provider. And he was like not financially stable so that he'd be willing to get a partner who was contributing half. And like, I felt like, and I, you know, the day after I thought about these things and like I subscribed to more like hypergamous channels about like, you know, only marry the guy who really does love you, who does want to be a provider and a protector. But I do feel like this generation, because women are making it as well, we have to cook and clean and do all the domestic chores and have kids and be a mom and a wife, while the man's role seems like if he doesn't prescribe to the role, because nobody can force a man to be a man, right? That's my thought. So long story short, like what are your thoughts on, I guess, millennial men and women and relationships? Holy shit, I talked a lot. Ah,
Well, that's all. Let's cure cancer while we're at it too. I think that would be good.
yeah.
Cherry on top. No, you know, you hit on a lot of important things, and I think my undergrad was in econ, so I'll answer it with kind of an economics
Okay.
bend.
Okay.
Is like you can't be a maximizer in everything, and so I think what you're saying is like more on the women's side.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of it more. It's like, well, I also have to be this amazing caretaker
Right.
and this powerful career person and a strong role model for other girls. And I don't think you can, that's so much pressure to put on anyone
Yeah, exactly.
to be like the best. I mean, it's like if you, the first time you did stand up, if you're like, I am going to be better than Richard Pryor.
That's what I do.
You know, it's like you would never do it. And I think a little bit of it is like that with dating or just kind of your own for younger people, like kind of their own sense of self-worth is like you don't have to be freaking the best at everything you do. And a lot of these goals, who cares what people say? You know, it's like if you don't want to be, you know, not everyone wants to be a CEO, and not everyone wants to make, you know, the best croquembouche or something. You know, I mean, there's like you can be really good at your career without necessarily being the best at it. And if you think you can maximize everything you do, that's just a recipe for burnout. And I don't think that's sustainable. And I think on the guy's side too, it's like, it's kind of fun to not have to do everything, and that way, and I mean that like in terms of like delegation. If you think you have to do everything, you're gonna do a crappy job at it. It's better to specialize in a few things and be really good at those.
I'm sorry, I just have to laugh because it's true, right? It's like, yeah, it's I because I work part time at golf course to try to find a rich man, and then like, you know, this guy comes
That's a
in,
good
like
idea.
a college student. Yeah, I'm strategic. But I'm like asking him to like help wrap my gifts, and then I know he purposely did it. So I wrote on my Instagram story like classic male tactic, feigning incompetence to get out of responsibility. And yeah, that's what he did. And I was like, ah, fuck. So to me, it's just like I don't even want to deal with the guys who think that way because they bring nothing to my life, right? And it's like I know I'm capable, and like I have a limited amount of time, because just I'm a woman. If I want to start a family, I can't waste time with these like time wasters, right? So, what
Yeah.
do you think is there? So, you think it's just gonna naturally sort out? Like the women who do want to do everything for men will get with a man who does expect everything, and the woman who does want to.
No, I think you, over time, as people kind of mature, you realize you can't do everything, at least by yourself. You know,
Right.
when you cooperate, you can go a lot further.
Right.
And I learned that from writing the book. Like I needed help, and it's important to recognize that sometimes you need help and to seek advice from others. And I think with relationships, it sounds a little bit hokey, but it's true. Like once you find someone whose goals matter more than your own, then you can be really happy in that relationship. Like for instance, when I never wanted to go to medical school. Like that was not, I wasn't pre-med. That was never really a goal of mine. But then when I was dating my wife and she didn't really know what field she wanted to pursue, and then after being together, she figured out she wanted to do ear, nose, and throat surgery. And I didn't really care about I didn't really care what she picked, but it was just so exciting that like when she finally figured it out, I was super happy about it. And because I saw the work she went to, and then I wanted to help her out. And then conversely, like when I had some investment jobs that I didn't really like, and I was then pursuing stand-up comedy, and to have her be supportive, especially when I produced shows, that was a lot of work. And she would like help me pass out flyers or tell her friends about it, or just get butts in seats. And she never wanted to be a stand-up comedian, but when she started, I guess, loving me, and when my goals became her goals and her goals became my goals, then it wasn't so much about like what am I offering and what are you offering. It was more like we're better together. And it sounds, I hear myself saying this, and it sounds corny as hell, but when you actually find it, it's pretty awesome.
I love that. So, how could one impress a woman of your wife's caliber, like doctor level? What impresses rich women?
What's that?
What impresses rich women or women with a lot of potential to be rich, like your wife when you met her?
Yeah, I'll put because I mean she wasn't like rich when we dated, and so I think what impresses someone like that is different than someone maybe like a Paris Hilton type, or someone who just like inherits money. I think what impresses ambitious women is confidence, and I think and by that I mean like if you can support them and what they're doing without feeling like a doormat, and also standing up for yourself. I think it's twofold. One, encourage them to do what they want to do without making it feeling like their success is any knock on yours. I think that's the most important. Like, and that's true in comedy. Like, celebrating someone else's achievements doesn't diminish your own. But if you're constantly trying to knock someone for something they achieved, that makes you look insecure. And I think ambitious women are similar. Like if you're out there starting a company and you're starting this like millionaires podcast and you meet someone who is knocking you for that, that's not a good fit. But if you meet someone who not only is excited about what you're doing, but encourages it and helps you out, you'll probably be more attractive to that guy. And I think that's true for a lot of women who have ambitious career goals.
Yeah. Nail on the head. Awesome. Love it. So, let's talk about your stand-up, because I feel like, your book is like about another person, and we just talked about your wife the whole time. So, like, can you talk us about, your career also, in tangent. So, like, can you tell us about, like, what are your favorite topics to talk about? Like, how did you start stand-up comedy? How did that start?
Sure. I started when I was an intern at Conan O'Brien. This was in 99.
Shit. Holy shit,
2000.
you're like a hidden gem. Okay, sorry. Yes, sorry. Got excited.
But that was a lot of fun. I did research on guests, and I did an open mic kind of as a dare with a fellow intern who didn't show up. But then I didn't really start doing it till probably like 3 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I moved back to LA, and then I really started doing it, you know, kind of seriously. Gosh, probably like 2003 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I always enjoyed watching it, and I first wanted to do it more just to see if I could, because I did improv comedy. In LA, there's a big improv scene. I took classes at the Groundling and Acme Theater, and that was fun, but it was just hard to always find people to perform with. At least in stand-up, you just had to worry about yourself. Like, you just had to get your one person, you know, to the club or whatever to perform. And then in terms of topics, I think it kind of changes with your position in life. Like, when I first started doing it, I'd gotten dumped by a long-time girlfriend, and that was kind of fun to just talk about that. It's sort of therapeutic. And then I was dating, then I was working, you know, I had like a day job. So the topics tended to be about that. Now I'm a married guy in Orange County with 2 kids. So my topics seem to be about that. But I think generally speaking, I like topics with a little element of surprise and ones that are rooted in personal experience. Like, that's not to say like everything I joke about happened to me directly, but most of the stuff I joke about has some tie to either something I've done or something that someone I know has done. Like, I don't just pick a news event and say like, I'm just going to talk about the news. If I talk about the news, it's going to be how it relates to me or someone in my life. Because I think audiences pay more attention to jokes and stories that are personal than ones that aren't.
That's very true. Yeah, and your jokes are very, like, I know you put in the work, and it's amazing to witness. You particularly had
Thank
a
you.
Berkeley joke, and I was like, I gotta meet this person. So, like, what are your thoughts? Seriously, it was hilarious. So, like, what are your thoughts? And that's what you wrote in the book. Like, you're like something about me having humor instead of all these stupid humorless cunts at UC Berkeley. But anyways, so like, what are your thoughts on the millennials who are super snowflakey and vocal and just very passionate but have no grounds? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I mean, we were all there once. I think it's something. I think the bottom line is life is so much better when you lighten up. That doesn't mean don't have passion, but like, not everything can be so damn grave and serious. It's like, we're all going to die one day anyway, so at least enjoy the time you have on this planet. And I think some, and it's awful to say like millennials are this, because there are however many millions of them, you know, like, but I mean, I'll just say this to people who get very like soapboxy and try to change the world through tweets. Like, if you want to change the world, do it with your actions, not your iPhone. I guess that's one thing. Like when my dad was in the Vietnam War, and obviously like there was a lot of controversy back then about should we be in it, and especially on college campuses. And obviously, I think looking back, I wouldn't have been like a hippie, but I sort of understand, you know, like I understand, like, yeah, we maybe shouldn't have, you know, gone to war in Vietnam. And again, that's a whole other topic. But my point was, then there were kids who actually like took a stand that had a consequence. Like I think nowadays, if you're, say, at any UC and you're yelling to people about the evils of Donald Trump, that's not controversial, and that's not taking a stand, and that doesn't really, like, you're just preaching to the choir. If you really want to make a difference, try to find common ground with people that disagree with you and treat them as a human being, and then from there have an exchange of ideas. But if all you do is call people racist that don't agree with you and insulate yourselves, and a lot of this is like, they can't help it. Like I was a little bit that way. Like, you go from high school to college and your role models are people who have no employable skills outside of getting government grants and writing academic papers, and they're your role models. And then you're around people who all kind of think the same and vote the same, and you know, they might not look the same, but their minds act pretty much the same. And so it's this echo chamber of sameness, and so I don't think you can really understand it till you get out of it. So do what you did, migrate or go to a different country or be a place where you're actually a minority
I
and,
might
and a
have to.
minority in your
I
thoughts.
might have
Yeah.
to.
So I guess that would be my advice.
I'm gonna move to Mexico, even though I got ghosted by my Mexican ex. I do think they can take a joke. Uh,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, you guys, they're so much better than Americans, just in terms of joke telling. Anyways, okay. So, yeah, thank you. That was a great response. Okay, God, so many questions. So you have two boys. So
I do.
what
Yeah.
are your like how are you raising them? Like what do you want them to know about the world besides marrying a rich woman? Like what else?
Oh gosh. In terms of knowing about the world, I think kind of like what we touched on earlier. First, contribute to it positively. Like, what can you bring to it? I think is a good way. And then I think once you find something you're good at or that you're willing to put in the work for,
Mm-hmm.
good things will happen to you. And so that's what I want to encourage my sons to be self-sufficient more than anything else. And I think once you're self-sufficient, you're not a leech on others, and I think that's super attractive. So I think if they find something that and I don't want to sound like find your passion. No, I want to be able to pay their damn bills. So I think find a purpose, and then your passion will follow. And then once you're self-sufficient, good things will happen, and then you can work. Then you can help others. And I think it all starts with the confidence to be self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my goal for my kids, because I don't want to pay for them my whole damn life.
What? But that's why you advise them to marry. Okay, anyways, but okay.
Well, their wives can pay for them, or I should say, my wife can pay for them. But I got Peloton bills to cover. I got yoga and waxing too.
Oh, nice. That's good. Okay. So, obviously you're a freaking genius, and okay, let's talk about the book a little bit.
I like obviously you're a genius.
Obviously, stable genius, most stable. So, okay, so you connected with all these people, right? You connected with Judd Apatow. It's connected with Greg Giraldo's wife, and so many amazing people. Like, what do you feel separates like really top level comics with like mediocre comedians?
Probably a willingness to be vulnerable. I think at the top level, like I'm trying to think like Bill Burr, for instance, is in many ways like a top level comedian. And I think what distinguishes him from maybe someone who's just like a very good touring comic is it seems that he doesn't care that much about the audience reaction. It's like he's in charge when he's on stage. Mm-hmm. And so he's willing to endure silence, and he's willing to endure kind of not being liked mm-hmm. by certain segments of I guess the comedy population. Mm-hmm. And I think that and as a result of that, Lee, is he gets his own voice. Mm-hmm. And I remember when Joan Rivers passed away before I started writing the book, but mm-hmm. there was a lot about her when she passed, and she was just so ballsy. Mm-hmm. And I think she had a lot of that too, where she was very willing to kind of bare her soul on stage. And I think that's what separated her from a lot of people who are a little more guarded about their faults. I think if you want to go out there and be disingenuous, you'll never really be at the top. And I think if you're willing to kind of share your warts and your pain, you're more likely to be on top. But that's just my speculation. I mm-hmm. can't say for certain, but that's my theory at least. Awesome. What do you think? Like you're around a lot of comics, and you see what do you think distinguishes someone from like a Greg Giraldo versus someone who's like a good working comic but fairly forgettable?
That's really interesting because I haven't thought about it because I'm so focused on okay, I feel like well, how should I say this without being an asshole? I feel like the people who are really professional, they look at it as a profession. Like they take it seriously, even if it's not their day job. Like they wouldn't do anything else because they take it so seriously and they love it so much. Like they couldn't imagine not doing it for one day. So it's almost like borderline obsession because I feel like
Yeah.
you just have to tell jokes because you would die if you mentally inside you would die if you don't. Does that make sense? Like I feel like the
It
hobbyists are
totally does.
whatever, but like the really serious people are like, if I don't do this, I'm gonna like die inside and like I can live with myself kind of. So I feel like the really good comics are like they're truth tellers. They're not just there to tell jokes. I mean, it's part of it, but it's also like they want to like see like Patrice O'Neill. He's my ultimate favorite. Like when I think of great, I think of him because he's like a social change agent. I feel like, you know, because he's like so funny, but he talks about a lot of stuff that people are scared about, and it's like if you gotta be
Yeah.
honest, you gotta take risks, you gotta do what you need to do. You can't be scared of anything because he doesn't give a fuck. From what I read about him, holy shit, everyone was terrified of him, but like he told the truth, and obviously he was hilarious. He's almost like another Greg Giraldo. It's creepy listening to the roast because it was two now
Uh-huh.
dead guys roasting each other, and they knew
Yeah.
whether like they were gonna die, and like it was creepy, but also it was like wow, like they were very like who the fuck is this here? Like they were like they could see into the future, and like and they didn't give a fuck, you know? Fuck you, I'm gonna be fat. Fuck you, I'm gonna do my drugs. Not in that way, but
Yeah.
it was like they knew they were gonna be great, and they also knew their downfall, but they had to tell it because it was like their mission in their heart. Holy fuck, that was the deepest I've ever gone in this
That
podcast.
was well
Fuck
said.
you,
Yeah. I'm going to put a period on that sentence. Yeah.
fuck,
What you just said.
period. Yeah. Holy shit. Okay. Now back to the trophy husband questions. Where am I? Okay. When did we talk about your first open mic? Like, what did you talk about exactly, or just it was
Well,
kind of
yeah, my first open, it was in New York City, and I talked a little bit of, I don't remember all the jokes, but it involved getting dumped. And I think that was, and some other, it was around Christmas time, so there are probably some corny Christmas jokes, but a lot of it I think was involved getting dumped. That's I don't remember a lot of specifics, but I do remember that part.
yeah, that's relatable. Awesome. So okay, before we share with you all the stalker links on where to stalk you, he's married, guys. Okay, be careful. Any other advice you would like to give to listeners, or anything else you would like to say that you didn't get a chance to talk about?
I said everything that needed to be said. So
efficiency. No wonder
no,
corporate investment.
I think what you said was true. Is about comedy is more of a vocation, I think, than a job. It's kind of an addiction.
Yeah.
So, and I'm telling myself this as I'm saying it aloud. Just enjoy every step, because there's always going to be someone who's better or has more success in it. And if you just compare yourselves upwards, it's going to be extra miserable. So just remember you have something to say, and enjoy the process, enjoy connecting with others. There's going to be people who don't like you. I wish I could just say don't worry about it, but you can worry, just don't let it stop you from doing what you want to do.
Right. So true. I love that. So, okay, where can we stalk you? What's your website? And Greg Giraldo book again.
Sure. Yeah. For the book, it's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. The website, it's at Greg Giraldo Book is the handle. My personal Twitter is at Matty B Game, MattyBGame. My last name is Balaker, so you can find me on Facebook that way. Those are the best ways to get in touch. So if you want to learn about Greg Giraldo, if you want to book me for an event, happy to talk.
Why is your Instagram so weird?
Why is my Instagram so weird?
Yeah. The name. Why is it Matty B? All that weird shit.
Oh, because I used to go. That's my Twitter. It's just Matty MattyBGame. That's a good question. When I started Twitter, I used to go by Matty Ballgame as a stage name, and I think that was taken. So the closest thing was B Game. So that's. I wish I had a sexier story, but that's it.
That's good enough. Whatever.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this interview. I learned so much. It's been one of the most constructive in terms of like comedian interviews. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for, you know, taking time out of your day. I have 2 kids and comedic career and a freaking rich wife. Holy shit. So thank you so much again. Hope to have you on future episodes if you allow me. But it's been
Of
great.
course. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.